According to Ben, quote, "There are crappy countries, but judging immigrants by their countries of origin is wrong. Quote, not all illegal immigrants should stay. Not all illegal immigrants should leave. Why can't we decide on a person-by-person basis? Quote, I would trade 100 million immigrants who don't take benefits for 100 million Americans mooching welfare today. But that's not the deal." I find that tweet in particular to be interesting. It shows how many neoconservative elites don't really see America as a nation of people. They see the United States as nothing more than an economic zone, and their political prerogative is maximizing GDP, not doing the right thing for the American people. According to Ben, 1. America's changing demographics don't matter. 2. We shouldn't judge immigrants by their country of origin. 3. Some illegal immigrants should be allowed to stay. And 4. The state should ideally import economically productive people and expel the economically unproductive, regardless of citizenship. That's a fairly typical mindset for many neoconservatives, and it makes logical sense. If you view the United States as an economic zone and not a nation made up of a common people with a common history and heritage, then why would you care about changing demographics? Why would you care if economically productive illegal aliens stay? And why wouldn't you be okay with expelling Americans that are economically unproductive and importing millions of foreigners? If your interest is in protecting big capital, this all makes perfect sense. In America, Shapiro contests that some illegal aliens must be allowed to stay. There's a cost to deporting them, right? And some of them are, I'm sure, economically productive people. But in Israel, full-scale deportation is an ugly solution, but the only solution. The children of the Palestinians he's talking about don't even get to vote and influence Israeli elections, as opposed to the children of illegal aliens in America that absolutely vote in American elections. In America, we have to be nuanced and careful, but Israel gets the right to deport everyone, even Israeli Arab citizens. And finally, in America, changing demographics do not matter. The browning of America doesn't matter. Ideology does. But strangely, in Shapiro's commentary on Israel, we don't see the same deference to ideology over ethnicity. Shapiro doesn't say, for example, I don't give a damn about the browning of Israel. Ethnicity doesn't matter. Support for Likud does. No, he doesn't say that because that would be dumb. Shapiro instead contends that Israeli Arabs must be deported. It is, after all, Israeli land. And yes, Palestinians may have been living there for hundreds of years, but that doesn't matter. They don't have the same historical claim to the land that Israelis do. Forcible ethnic transfer of populations, as Ben Shapiro says, isn't a dirty word. It's the inevitable and peaceful solution. This may be one of my biggest problems with Ben Shapiro. He has two entirely different sets of standards, one for the US and one for Israel. In America, changing demographics don't matter. In Israel, changing demographics spell the death of the nation state. I would love it if these topics were able to be debated and discussed. I do think Shapiro is a very intelligent guy, and he's very good at debating, so it would be great if you were able to have a conversation with someone to his political right about these topics. Why does he believe demographics are irrelevant in America? And why the different standard with Israel? Why should Americans not judge people based on their country of origin, but it's okay for Ben to say that Arabs just like to blow stuff up and live in sewage? Well, when Nick Fuentes tried to have that conversation with him, he got called an anti-Semite. Facts don't care about your feelings, and it appears that name-calling and socially shaming to dodge a conversation doesn't care about facts.
He starts by saying that Ron Paul engaged in identity politics, which, as you point out right away, I mean, that just could not be further from what Ron Paul ever talked about. And then he says he engaged in identity politics for being anti-Zionist. Zionism is the definition of identity politics. What could be more identity politics than Zionism?
Okay, I'm exactly the age that Roy Moore was when Roy Moore was apparently doing this stuff. The idea of even going anywhere near a high school freshman is so perverse and sickening. And anyone who ever tried to do that to my sister or my daughter, I would be very tempted to grab my shotgun from my safe, drive them to a remote spot, and take them out. I believe that these allegations are credible. I believe the allegations are credible because this woman went on the record and because there are multiple women who allege that Roy Moore reached out to them as teenagers and that he went as far as they would allow them to go and then stopped when they said no. Right? The allegations seem consistent to me and they seem credible to me. With that said, would I support Roy Moore? The answer is no.
Because as entertaining as Donald Trump is a liar. What about Trump's successes? Didn't he make his own way? Well, turns out that Trump's daddy was a New York real estate tycoon who loaned the Donald $1 million to get him started, about $6 million of today's dollars. That wasn't the only loan Trump got from daddy either. Trump later ran his daddy's company. When he started running it in 1974, his share of the company is reported to have been worth about $40 million. In 1982, Forbes estimated Trump was worth $200 million. Today, they say he's worth somewhere between $3 and $4 billion, proof of his keen business skills. Except, It's actually less than he would have made if you just liquidated all of that, put all the money in the stock market, and hung out at the casino strip clubs instead. Of course, Trump, who absolutely never, ever exaggerates about anything, particularly his successes, he says he's worth $9 billion. But we don't really know because Trump, like Presidents Obama and Hillary Clinton, doesn't like to release his documents. But Donald still hasn't presented his actual tax returns. So, is Trump a big winner? Or is he a spoiled brat who grew up in the lap of luxury, had his daddy sign his checks, and then bragged about how he is a huge winner? Trump's three biggest crowds are evangelicals, conservatives, and he's a winner voters.
To hurt Trump, of course. It's no secret that Shapiro's website, Daily Wire, was given startup capital by Texas oil billionaires Ferris and Dan Wilkes.
A similar problem, which is that he's gutting the party. I mean, if you just look at how he's doing with minorities, if you look at how he's doing with women, there's an entire generation of people who are going to look at everyone who backed Trump and started speaking out in favor of Trump and talking about how wonderful Trump was, and they're going to say, so you're okay with the Mexican judge comment, and you're okay with him making fun of disabled reporters, and you're okay with this and that. That means you're a bad person. I'm never going to vote for people like this again.
Hey, my kid can't afford it. I can't afford my kid's asthma medicine. Too bad. Welcome to Welcome to Ben Shapiro's America. What a dummy.
There goes his low taxation argument, assuming he's a real conservative. There goes his small government argument, because you're going to have to expand the military and possibly other agencies. Let's see. What else do we have to expand? Oh, yeah, the budget. That means more government spending. Woohoo. Good on you, Mr. Shapiro. Yeah, that's real conservative of you. So, yeah. So here's the thing. It's not just that he supported Bush Jr. heavily. The reason I think Ben Shapiro is a neoconservative is a combination of his heavy support for Bush Jr., the fact that he said in his article that he wants to essentially invade every other Middle Eastern country out there and replace their dictators. I don't care for his reasoning, by the way. So, yeah, you guys, those who like Ben Shapiro, you really need to be wary of this. Find yourselves a better guy to like. I mean...
All right, it's always this way. It's always the most non-rugged, most pussified-looking midgets that want to support war. That's the way that it always is. Real men who've been in conflict know that conflict sucks. The only conflict Ben has ever been in is with a violin getting some note wrong as he prepares for a recital. This is not a dude that is in touch with his masculine side at all. At all. And the idea that some conservatives get off on his tough guy talking points is pathetic, low IQ, and absolutely brain dead. I've questioned Obama. I've questioned every president, every leader that we have. It would be offensive to not question Bibi Netanyahu's claims on Iran, especially when he's lied in the past about stuff like this. And Shapiro's going to cover that. But the funny thing is that when Shapiro covers it, Shapiro himself is going to lie about it. So let's hear what he has to say.
Everything is inevitably going to lead to war. That's nonsense. It is worth noting, by the way, that Israel was very tepid about the Iraq War in the first place. For all the people who keep saying that Israel was the cause of the Iraq War, go back and look at the evidence. The Israeli government was really not stumping for the Iraq War. They were very, very torn about whether the United States should go to war in Iraq in the first place. That was a George W. Bush initiative. I think it was the right initiative at the time based
on... All right, look at this. This is so much to dissect here. Okay, first of all, first things first. All right, so we've got Bibi Netanyahu, and Israel didn't stump for a war with Iraq. Now, you could easily right now, in fact, pause this video right now. Go into YouTube and type in Netanyahu Iraq War, and you're going to see Netanyahu in front of Congress talking all about how he knows for a fact Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction and how it's going to be so dangerous for the whole region. Now, from the clips that I've seen, he doesn't walk up to the line and say, hey, bomb them tomorrow just for me, just for your friends, the Israelis. He doesn't quite go that far, but clearly saying they're weapons of mass destruction, he's going to use them, it's a huge, huge danger for the region, is propagandizing, right? And in a sense, I almost don't blame him for doing it, right? They had some type of policy in place, clearly some type of belief system where they felt like Saddam had to go, and he got someone else to do it for him. And I guess that's the dirty deal of politics. It's the unfortunate aspect of a lot of business deals. There is a Machiavellian component to it, but we have to start thinking Machiavellian as well. All right, Ben Shapiro is lying to you. He's lying to you. Netanyahu, clear as day, put out the WMD lies. He fomented those lies, and now we have the same guy coming back in and telling us that Iran is making nukes right now. And let's get to that point as well. First of all, let's assume that whole point is true. in a sick way, I could understand why Iran would want nukes. Again, do I want them to have them? No, I don't. The same way I don't want North Korea to have them. But if you don't think that the mullahs, and also Kim Jong-un as well in the case of North Korea, haven't noticed that whenever a country gives up its WMDs, they get blown up by the United States. Let's analyze this here. This is the person that you're supposed to believe is gonna lead the conservative establishment to a new era of victory in the United States as they overthrow the liberals. A guy who's still apologizing for neocon foreign policy mistakes and shitting all over Pat Buchanan, one of the few mainstream politicians that actually has espoused an intelligent, thought-out America First foreign policy that he's been detailing for like the better part of 30 years? Really? Really? This guy right here is going to criticize someone like Pat Buchanan. Give me a break. Give me a break. It's always the most effeminate, midget-like people that want war. People have never been in it. It's so obvious, it's so clear as day, and it's so disgusting on so many levels. But let's let Ben if you're not angry enough, let's let Ben finish up.
The war on behalf of the Jews routine, I don't think that's right, especially because as Iranian influence goes in the region, that threatens a lot of American interests aside from Israel, including Saudi Arabia, including the fate of Europe, including American troops that are stationed around the world. Iran developing this sort of technology is extraordinarily dangerous, especially considering that Iran has such close relationships with a bunch of terror groups. You talk about Iran as the greatest state terror sponsor on planet Earth. That is obviously the case.
All right, so we can clearly see Ben is the worst. And he has a couple claims there at the end that are super, super frustrating to deal with. Now, Iran's the greatest state sponsor of terrorism in the world. We always hear this get thrown around. Of course, he's not talking about Saudi Arabia funding ISIS, he's not, which is obviously called for the deaths of Americans, has committed attacks against Westerners all over the world. No, he's going to talk about groups like Hezbollah, which, as far as I know, haven't done a whole hell of a lot to hurt the United States. Now, again, doesn't mean I want them here. I don't want them here. I don't want to live with Muslims, period. But ultimately, to act like Iran has been a bigger threat and their funding of terrorist groups has been a bigger threat than what Saudi Arabia has done is completely disingenuous. And I mean, it's an outright lie is what it is. It's an abject outright lie. Now, he also says something about how Pat Buchanan's like, there'll be no more wars on behalf of the Jews. Now, Buchanan might think that, maybe, but he didn't say that in that clip. He's saying, I don't want my country going to war for the interests of another country. And this is what these people, these victim mindset retards, and this is what's so frustrating about conservatives, at least the conservative incorporated people, is that they have the same mindset as the liberals. Here's a guy playing the whole victim mindset. No more wars for the Jews. Oh God, oh God. Listen, he's counting that you're going to be worried about being considered anti-Semitic by supporting Pat Buchanan's talking points. That's what he's saying with the no more wars for the Jews talking point. Because no more wars for Israel would actually probably have a slightly different connotation and how you interpret it mentally. This, my friends, is why mainstream conservatism is an enemy to all of us. Because at the end of the day, the talking points are the same. Some people that are still trapped in the mainstream media, conservatism appeals to them. The mainstream neoconservative stuff appeals to them because it's more masculine than the liberal ideology. But you'll notice that it's really you're only allowed to be masculine in supporting the liberal agenda, right? All you're allowed to do is act, yeah, we want war, we want to take out these countries, we're tough, we're tougher than the liberals. But Hillary Clinton also wanted to attack Iran. Hillary Clinton wanted war with all these countries. How is this any different? The only difference is that he's a little more hawkish and makes some people feel tough based on the existence of the American military. I've had enough of foreign wars. I've had enough of dual citizen, people in the United States shilling for one country while claiming United States citizenship and acting like the best interests of their country are the same as the best interests for Americans. It's not. It's not. I'm getting to the point now where if you're a dual citizen, I don't even want to hear from you. I don't want to hear about you. I don't trust you. Those of us Americans who have nowhere else to go need to make decisions based on what is best for us as a nation and our people. Not this America first, but yeah, I kind of like Israel, but I also like America. I'm going to hedge my bets, but if America blows up, I can always jump back to my ethno-state. This is not acceptable. This is not acceptable, and we need to be awoken to it immediately. Any type of shilling for war with Iran, and as it stands right now, again, I'm open to interpretation if more things come out, but any type of shilling for war with Iran is detrimental to the United States. It's a disaster. We can't afford it. It will create another huge refugee crisis, which will continue the destruction of the West. It's a bad idea. Say no to war with Iran and say no to neocons like Ben Shapiro.
Any Jew can be the Messiah in the Jewish view. Right? So I could be it. Who knows?
No.